Welcome to season 3 of The Skinny. I'm your host, Jhánnue. So many things happening all at the same time. Incredible conversations and movements that have been ignited and reignited. Much to learn and even relearn. This season on The Skinny, we dig deeper, cutting the fat and getting right down to the nitty-gritty on topics that impact our lives. I'm so excited to highlight amazing stories and facilitate impassioned voices and conversations, eager to share, learn, grow, and evolve with you into more amazing, enlightened, and empowered souls. So come on, honey bunnies, let's do this. Hi, honey bunnies. Welcome to another episode of The Skinny. I hope you're well and doing wonderful. If this is your first time or you are returning, thank you so much for spending this time with me. I'm sending you the hugest hugs. So let's see. Excess and overconsumption is the norm for so many. Most times it's an unintentional way of life that we are all just accustomed to, pretty much because it's how we're marketed to in many aspects of our lives. And stuff makes us feel better. That whole concept of shopping therapy or spending to release whatever stress we have. That's the common and underlying message that most companies hope we will all continue to believe so that we buy and buy, whether we need it or not. Well, with more people becoming aware of the impacts of waste on the environment in our pockets, people are looking for ways to trim back and produce as little waste as possible. There are a lot of ways we can gradually adjust and adapt to changing some, if not all, of our ways. Remember, the goal is never perfection, it's progress. And that we can do or decide to do whatever works for us. And for each individual, it'll always vary. And whatever we do is always good enough. So with me on the show today is an amazing woman and boss lady, a sustainability and low waste expert, eco-influencer and activist, founder of Low Waste Beauty, and a highly respected voice and face in the sustainability and low waste community. She's also an advocate for diversity and inclusivity. This is my guest, Jhánnue. So let's jump right into the ins and outs of low waste living. The conversation starts now. Hi, Jhánnue.
Hi, how are you?
I'm good. Thank you so much for being here.
Of course. Happy to be here.
Let's get started. What is low waste sustainable living in your own words?
Yeah, no. So, people say the term zero waste. And for me, I wanted to stay away from that because I feel like when you say zero waste, that means that you can't produce any waste. And then people get intimidated and then they don't want to do anything at all because they're like, I can't do this lifestyle. So the way I like to say is low waste living or sustainable living. So for me, it's all about just like making conscious decisions on like reducing your waste and reducing your environmental impact. So whether that's trying to find, bulk stores where you can, bring your own containers, or whether that's buying products that come in aluminum versus plastic, or maybe it's buying from a company that offsets their carbon footprint. So for me, it's just like finding various ways that you can make changes in your daily life to reduce your environmental footprint.
Okay. So when did this journey start for you, and what was the thing or moment that caused you to make this lifestyle shift?
Yeah, so about 2 years ago, I got really into minimalism and this idea of living with less. Like, so many of us just go out and buy things to make us happy, and then you have all this clutter and you get overwhelmed. And I was like, I have too much stuff. I wear the same, 5 shirts every day. Like, why do I have so many things? I'm only wearing only a fraction of it. And so I just started watching, YouTube videos as one does. And I was watching YouTube videos on minimalism, and I just started learning more and more about just like the joy of living with less. So I started donating a lot of my clothes and realized that I only needed very few things. And when you start kind of researching and learning more about minimalism, the idea of sustainable and low waste living pops up because they have very similar ideas. Both of them are about being intentional. What are you bringing into your home? And low waste living for me is what are you also taking out of your home and throwing away? And so when I started learning more about where our trash goes, I was like, oh my goodness, this is crazy. We think you throw stuff in the recycling bin and it gets recycled. Great. But a majority of the things that we recycle actually aren't recycled, or they're not even recyclable. And that's because
Hmm.
we just aren't educated, and companies are producing products that aren't recyclable, and there's no sort of regulation for them to do so. They're just going to keep on doing it because it's just the cheaper option.
Right.
Um, so as I started learning more and more about it, I was like, this is crazy that like these things are going on. And I started talking about it on social media. And I already had a little bit of a following because I moved out to LA to do acting, and I had a little bit of following from kind of doing like Instagram skits, which I have archived because I don't want anyone to find. They're not bad. It's just like a different time in your life. Like I was young. I'm just like I'm over that point. But I had a little bit of following from that. But I really wanted to talk about something that had meaning and value to it.
Hmm.
And so when I transitioned my platform to talk about low waste living, it was just great to get like people that really cared about the environment onto my page. And as I started learning more and more about it and seeing the faces who were talking about it, I was like, no one looks like me. And the majority of people on there, or like the face of the movement, are white women, and I'm like, well then.
How has the transition been for you? Oh, before we move on, just for clarity. So, are people using low waste and zero waste interchangeably, or is there a significant difference between both?
I mean, I think people use it interchangeably. I mean, sometimes I even slip and say zero waste, but
Hmm.
because I feel like people may understand the idea of like zero waste a little bit better because they may just like hear it thrown around more.
Hmm.
For me, low waste living is like it's okay to make mistakes. Zero waste living is like I don't produce any waste, and like the only waste I produce goes in this little jar that like I had for 2 years. Like that's zero waste living to me. Whereas like low waste living just like gives you the opportunity to like not be perfect. Like everyone's working towards being zero waste. Of course, like we would love to do that, but that's impossible unless you live on a farm and grow your own food. Even the people that
what
go ahead.
no, what are a couple of the first changes or swaps that you made, and what has been the most challenging adjustment to get used to?
Yeah, I think the first swaps I made, I mean, the number one tip I give is like use what you have first. Just don't go throwing out every single thing that's plastic. Like you still want to use what you have. And then once you use what you have, you like make sustainable alternatives. So I started um, doing like I started in my bathroom, and so I started using bar soap instead of body wash that came in a plastic bottle. I started
Mhm.
using a stainless steel razor, which up front might be as light, like a little bit more pricey,
Mhm.
but you're buying one razor that's going to last you forever, and then the blade refills are like $10. So
Right.
it's just like finding those swaps first that like are affordable in the long run is what I was looking at.
Mhm.
Um, so I kind of did the bathroom and then also like kitchen. Like I made my own cleaning products, and just like kept it really, really simple, like using things like vinegar and baking soda, which are things you can use on other parts of your home as well.
Right.
And I think the hardest has been just finding beauty and hair products that don't come in plastic packaging. There's a lot of products out there that are like hair and hair products, but they aren't meant for textured or black hair. So definitely been more of an issue. Like I need some deep conditioners and some leave-in creams.
Yes, us natural girls, we definitely need that. What has been the hardest thing to give up?
um, I think one, I don't believe in like, giving up everything. Like I think you can pick and choose what it is that you're going to focus on. But I
Mm.
think just like whether it's like maybe like ordering food, like it's so convenient. It's like the things that are convenient, like ordering food in, or just like instead of making your own products, like just taking the easy way out and just buying it,
Mhm.
depending upon what it is. But I think the biggest thing for me is just like ordering food in, especially with COVID.
Yes.
And even if you're just getting groceries delivered, like that's still plastic because a lot of grocery stores have been using plastic bags. So I think it's the kind of delivery stuff that I've
Yes.
been struggling with as of late.
So what are some of the misconceptions that people have about living a sustainable and low waste lifestyle? Like, for example, one of the things you said earlier is that it can come across as being an exceptionally expensive
Mhm.
alternative. But there are other misconceptions. So what do you think would be like some of the main misconceptions that you've realized aren't so?
Yeah. I mean, I think even thinking back to before I really got into this space, when I think of like environmentalists, I think of like a hippie person that lives off of, you know, a farm and like doesn't shower. That's what I thought like would think of. And so I think just making it like it's not just one sort of person, but that's what I feel like it's been for a long period of time. Like that's what you
Mhm.
think of when you think of an environmentalist. And then in terms of expense, some things are expensive, right? Like if you're buying a ethically made shirt that like isn't secondhand, it's going to be expensive as it should be because if the person that's making it is like paying people fairly, then the shirt's going to be expensive. So like there are ways to make it not expensive in terms of thrifting and like making your own products. So I like to make my own cleaner. So I take like vinegar and rubbing alcohol. And like when you're buying, products in bulk that are also multi-use, that means you're buying less products overall. And a majority of the sustainable swaps, like the razor, like you're actually saving money in the long run versus like disposable razors that you're paying, I don't know, 20, $30 a month for. Whereas I'm like, paying a couple dollars a year for a few razor blades. So
Mhm.
I think it's just realizing that like some of these things are investments, but they do save you a lot of money and waste in the long run.
So some of the things that you talk about, it's like the blatant disparities and that race plays a huge part in sustainability and that we can't really fairly talk about one without talking about the other. What are your thoughts on the lack of diversity and inclusion? And have you seen any improvements with companies or platforms since you started?
Yeah, it's so, when the whole like Black Lives Matter thing happened a couple months ago,
Mhm.
all these brands started reaching out to all the Black creators, which is good. But then it's also unfortunate that it took all of that for them to reach out to us, right?
Right.
Like
Right.
it shouldn't take all that. Now every time I go on my phone, I see an ad and like there's a Black person in the ad, which I do want to see diversity in ads, but like why is that only happening now?
Mhm. Do you feel that some of it is, like, performative just for a small time period, or do you think there will be longevity?
Well, I think one, like time will tell, right? Like we'll see a year from now, are they still working with a lot of diverse creators? And then I
Mhm.
think too, a big indicator is like, are they actually paying Black and brown creators, right? Like, are they not just putting ads up of like Black people, but are they actually paying influencers like myself fairly
Mhm.
and paying us well? Like, I think that tells us a lot too, because it's like, if you really want to support us, then you'll pay us.
Right.
If you're not trying to pay, I don't even like because what people don't understand is that like I just did a post on this. Like I'm a business too. I literally have an LLC.
Yes.
I have to pay taxes. I have to pay rent, which is also my office, which is where I film. I also have to buy camera equipment, which is very expensive. Like I also have a part-time assistant. Like I also have an accountant. I also have a manager. Like why would I do something for free?
Right. So how does, one's race affect living a sustainable lifestyle?
For sure. So I think it's race, but it's also just like the financial part of it as well. So, for example, there's this place in Louisiana called Cancer Alley, and it's like a 45-mile stretch. I may be getting the actual number wrong, but it's about 45 miles of just like
Mhm.
industrial like plants where they're like producing all this plastic. And a majority of people that live there are low income. It's a low income communities of color, and like the
Mhm.
cancer rate there is 50 times higher than a national average, which is why it's called Cancer Alley. And all these people are dying young, and all of these kids have asthma and like can't go outside and can't breathe the air. And all these facilities are located, primarily in low income communities of color. Like you're not going to go to Beverly Hills and find one of these facilities. And
Right.
even me, I live in Leimert Park, which is a Black area in Los Angeles. And like you go down the road a little bit, and there's like fracking, and I like didn't even realize it. Um,
Mhm.
and it's just pretty crazy how like these facilities that are, related to plastics, oil, etc., like are always in communities of color. Even though Baldwin Hills, which is like one of the, highest like net worth in terms of like Black people,
Right.
it's literally right next door, and it's pretty crazy how these facilities are there. And it just like goes back to, way back in the day, when there was like all this different red lighting, and like, Black people lived in one area and white people lived in another area. Um,
Hmm.
and then I think there's that big scale. And then there's also the smaller scale of like, well, when I'm looking for a foundation that's sustainable, I like can't find my range. There's that part of it too. Because it's
Hmm.
like if we want everyone to be, included in this movement of being sustainable, but then we're not creating products or resources for them to thrive. Like, how is that going to work? And then that even goes to like, food deserts. Like there's a lot of, people in the sustainability movement that are like, I'm just going to go to my bulk food store and take my, produce bag. And it's like, well, some people don't even have grocery stores like anywhere near them, but no one talks
Right.
about that.
Right. Exactly. And then I think that that's an important point because, in addition to there probably not being accessible education and information within these communities to let them know what their options are
Mhm.
or alternatives are, then, there it is that you may not have a farmer's market, or you may not have, the option of buying directly from a farm, or your grocery store may just not even be, filled with the things that are gonna
Mhm.
be nourishing to you within your neighborhood. Otherwise, you'd have to, like, take transportation. What if you don't have a car? Then you have to take the bus. Does the bus even go, so there's
Mhm.
so many layers to it, like, how do we then make it accessible and available at different price points so that more people can be included is where my thoughts are. But with all that you're saying, what is your mission, goal, and intention for your platform, your voice, and having your face be a part of the community? What do you hope to achieve?
Yeah, so I think, well, one, first and foremost, like I just want this lifestyle to seem attainable to everyone. Like, obviously,
Mhm.
depending upon where you're at just in life, like it may look different as to what that lifestyle will look like for you. But I'm all about just like providing ways for, everyone to kind of do their part. Like, maybe you can't go 100% plastic free with everything, but maybe there's one swap that you can make. And so I
Right.
think it's just bringing people in through just like showing what I do and less about teaching. Like, I'm not trying to necessarily teach people. I just want people to see how I live, and hopefully they can take something away from that. Um, and then I think longer term, it's really just to like grow my personal brand, like money wise, so I can
Mhm.
create businesses that, are helping support these underserved communities, whether that's like opening, a bulk food store in the hood, or
Mhm.
whether that's just like partnering with a nonprofit. Like, I think there's a variety of different things I would like to do. I know there are more stores now that like offer like food stamps. So, for example, there's Tar Grocery in Los Angeles, and they're an amazing bulk food store, and they accept food stamps.
And what's the name of this? What?
Tare, Tar
Okay.
Grocery. It's like the most beautiful bulk store I've ever seen in my life. And yeah, and so I think it's that. And then it's like, well, maybe there are ways for like an Instacart to, partner with brands like or companies like these and deliver to, these underserved communities. Because that's another thing. Like, a lot of delivery services don't deliver to certain areas. So it's
Mm.
like, well, yeah, you have delivery, but if you're not delivering to everywhere, then how does everyone have access to it, especially when people don't have, like cars? But it's really just trying to promote a lifestyle for me that like people can see themselves doing. And I
Mhm.
think when you make a change in one area of your life, like you make changes in other areas of your life. Like, for me, I'm from the south side of Chicago, and like I grew up around like people who just like couldn't picture, the next couple years because they're thinking about how do I get to tomorrow. And
Yeah.
so for me, I'm just all about how can I help people just like live better, healthier, more sustainable lives. And I think sometimes just making small changes in one area of your life can trickle to like other areas as well, and like cause you to be more intentional, and just like kind of strive for better.
So many people, because doing this, like some of the things you mentioned before, you have to be conscious or selective with like the companies and products and clothing that's being used. And it can, of course, sound luxurious. Like, okay, I'm trying to
Mhm.
figure out what's for dinner. I don't have time to like check out, these other things. So what do you say to any of our listeners that would like to be more sustainable and less wasteful, but it may come across as like time consuming or such an expensive way with your maneuvering through the community? And this is your life experience as well. Can this be done on a low budget? Can this be done and you still have access to sustainable clothing options and products and, these alternative options that there? Can this be done if someone's not rich and someone doesn't have a lot of time?
Yeah, I think um, the cool thing is I feel like the majority of things that I do personally don't take too much time
Hmm.
or even too much money. So when it comes to starting a low waste life, for me, it's like, or what I recommend to people is like, look at your trash. Like, what are you actually throwing away? And 9 times out of 10, you're going to find it's food related, like, or product related. Product related meaning like, your toothpaste tube, or maybe it's a cleaner that you're throwing away. Usually those are where people are producing the most waste.
Hmm.
And so I think meal prepping and like meal planning is one of the best ways to save money and waste, because you're not wasting food. Like, we're all guilty of going to the grocery store and just throwing a bunch of things in our cart. We get home and then next thing you know, 2 weeks later, like there's a whole bunch of stuff that went bad because we didn't plan.
Hmm.
So like there are ways to reduce your waste without even like thinking about it, because I feel like for me, reducing my waste is not just throwing plastic away, but it's like, how can I use what I already have and make that last? So if you have food in your fridge, it's like, freeze it. Or can you take some veggie scraps and make that into veggie broth? And then you don't have to buy veggie broth. But I think planning is a big part of helping you reduce your waste.
Hmm.
And I mean, obviously, not everyone has access to grocery stores, and some people don't have access to grocery stores that don't come with produce wrapped in a ton of plastic. But your average grocery store, like a Sprouts, like they do have a lot of produce that come unpackaged. So it's like
Okay.
finding things that come unpackaged. And then finding foods like maybe beans that come in cans if you can't find them in bulk, versus plastic. So I think it's just like looking at the materials themselves, and then
Hmm.
also buying in bulk as well. So if you are going to buy plastic, like buy the biggest one, like the biggest bottle you can of that thing, because there's a higher chance of getting recycled versus like a tiny bottle of something.
Okay. That's a good point. Do you find that it's difficult to maintain your low waste lifestyle outside of home, like with restaurants and those other things?
Yeah, I mean, COVID's been a little bit tricky, but in terms of like, if let's say I go to a restaurant and I eat and then I don't finish everything, like you can take a container from home with you and just like put the food in there. I love
Hmm.
stasher bags. They're a little bit pricey, but if you have a Ziploc bag at home and you want to bring that, that's fine too. Um, because I think it's just important that we like show that you can be low waste without buying all these expensive products, but you can use things that you already have in your home. But again, it just goes back to being prepared, like going and having, the Tupperware already with you, so you can put that in instead of bringing home a plastic container.
Hmm. One of the swaps that you've talked about, and is a very key one, is the razor.
Mhm.
So USA Today has an article that talked about how to keep your razors from contributing to landfill waste, and the EPA, Environmental Protection Agency, some years ago estimated that 2 billion razors and refill blades get tossed out in the US each year, and they don't have a recent update on the numbers. I don't think that they're tracking it as closely as they were, but they stated that it's more than likely, at the rate that everything was happening, that it's increased a lot since the last report. So most recycling programs in the US don't even accept them
Yeah.
because they're sharp objects and made with mixed materials. So
Mhm.
for us, this is also a huge and easy adjustment that we can make, both men and women, to cut back on the amount of plastic because, you use the razor one, two times and you throw it away and you go through so many within the year, but all of it is just ending up in the landfills and it's not breaking down. And I remember as a little girl sitting and watching my dad shave with his like double-edged safety
Mhm.
razor and what seemed like this super cool gadget that he used to use to put the shaving cream, but now as a grown woman, of course, I realized that was probably the brush that came with the set.
Mhm.
So I was so fascinated, but there's like a huge comeback, and this is a very easy swap that can be made, but it's a huge impact. And for those that are considering the switch, how is the shave? Because this is something that you use now, but for us, we want to know, is this going to feel good when we're done shaving? So, how is the shave in comparison to using the disposable?
It's crazy because I haven't used a disposable one in 2 years. Like when you first get the razor, you're like, oh my God, I'm going to cut myself. And it's
Uh-huh.
like, you just have to, once you start using it, you're like, it's no big deal. You just get used to it. But I mean, you do have to be like a little bit more gentle, but I wouldn't be scared at all. And the shave it works just as well as a disposable razor.
Mhm.
And the only tip I would give is to make sure when you're using it in the shower that you dry it off so it doesn't rust because it is metal. Um, but no, I think the shave is great. I shave everywhere with it, and I think it does the job just as well.
Okay, because all of us would be like, yeah, that sounds good, but am I walking around with stubbles? Like, what's happening?
No, not at all.
So I wanted to ask. Okay, great. So, what are four other budget-friendly and low-waste swaps that people can make right now in their homes? I know you have like a million of them. I was laughing with you before.
Yeah, I would say budget friendly. So they're in terms of like I guess right away. So I think bar soap is a good one. I
Mhm.
mean bar soap and liquid soap can sometimes be about the same price. So it's like an easy swap there. And then also a majority of body washes are like 80 to 90% water. So you're actually paying for water rather than just like getting an actual bar. So you're saving water that way as well. And bar soaps are usually like, under $5. Um,
Mhm.
and if you find a bar soap, so I love Castile soap. So Bronner's Castile soap, they have a variety of different scents, but I love the tea tree one, and I'll use that on my body and as a shampoo bar as well. So it's like $5 for both of
Ah,
those.
wow. How is it in your hair? How is it in your
It's
hair?
really good. It's one of the best shampoo bars. Like it's not even a shampoo bar, but I use it as a shampoo bar because a lot of like shampoo bars I found are, for white hair. And
Mhm.
we need that lather. Like we need a lot of soap. Okay.
Yes.
I don't have all day to sit here to try to get this bar soap to lather. And Castile soap like lathers very, very well. And what's cool about Castile soap is that you can like, if you want to use that bar and melt it down and use it as hand soap, you can do that. I use Castile soap to also clean dishes. I use Castile soap to clean the tub. Like it's this amazing multi-use cleaner, and it's just vegetable based products, and it's vegan and it's not harmful at all. Um, but it's super affordable. The bar soap, at least. The liquid can be a little bit pricey, but the bar soap, at least, is pretty affordable.
The funny thing is that I started using a bar soap on my face when I was in the 8th grade.
Mhm.
I won't tell you what year that is. Um, and I still use that same exact bar soap right now. So when it became like a thing for liquid soaps and all of this big, huge, going through the routine, your face routine, and all of this stuff, I never gave up my bar soap that I used on my face. I still use it right now. And so I was so thrilled to find out. I'm like, hey, this is a sustainable thing that I've already been doing. And it works fine. So I can definitely tell you that using a bar soap on your face can be fantastic. And it has been fantastic for years. I know sometimes the concern is that, you'll get a film on your face or, all of these other things that we heard about previously. But there are a lot of bar soaps out there that are really, really great. So that's a good swap that's easy enough to make. All right, so let's transition a little bit. I personally love seeing people go after and accomplish their dreams, and I saw that with you. And I am so incredibly proud of you. This year, you became a full-time entrepreneur, boss babe, business owner, which is like huge, huge congratulations. I
Thank
didn't want us
you.
to get to this without me telling you that. And I remember you sharing this intention with me last year when we first met. We were just like generally talking, and you wanted to be able to go into your business full time, not have it be part time. And there's some other goals that you had shared with me as well. And to see this all unfold and happen has been so amazing. And I just, I love taking time to acknowledge, credit, and just let you know that I'm like a cheerleader off on the side because I remember our conversation and I'm like, she's doing it. Well, how do you feel now being on the other side of your goal?
It's great. I mean, it's definitely different because it's not like every month I can count on X amount of dollars coming in, right? Like you're still working kind of contract to contract. But I
Mhm.
think sometimes you got to take a chance on yourself and just know that,
Mhm.
it will work out and you just have to kind of move and adjust when needed. So for me, it's great that I'm now able to focus full time on growing my own brand and, making me money because like instead of making someone else money.
Right, right. Building someone else's dream.
Exactly. So working on building my own, but it's been a journey. Yeah. I've been on social media for about 4 years. So I think people see influencers and think like how can I do that, how can I do that, but there really is no magic. It's really just the hard work and the dedication and the time and the amount of weekends that I've spent just like shooting content and photos just for free, just to like put on Instagram so I could grow. Like I
Yeah.
couldn't even tell you how many. So it's a lot of like doing work behind the scenes for years and years before you actually see results. But now it's great to know that like all that time and energy where I was like, this isn't going anywhere, actually has become something. And people are starting to acknowledge like the things that I've done. And it's just been great. It's scary, right? Because again, you don't know always when your next check is coming in. And like when you're getting paid as an influencer, it's like if I do a deal, sometimes it takes, 30, 40 days for me to get paid. Uh,
Mhm.
and that's pretty normal. So there's also that element of it too, and just like planning out your money right. And then you have to make sure you're putting money aside for taxes because you have to do your own taxes. But all good problems to have, and super, super blessed and grateful.
So, a high and low, what are you enjoying most about it, running your business full time? And what has been the most challenging or frustrating, if anything at all, so far?
Yeah, I think the high is that I can basically set my own schedule. So, like, if I have, let's say, I have 10 campaigns that are coming up in the next, I don't know, month or two. If I tell myself, okay, you're going to shoot all this content in 1 week, then that means like I get time throughout the rest of the 2 months to like focus on
Mhm.
content that's not an ad and focus on just doing fun things and just doing whatever it is I want to do. Like if I want to go travel, I can travel. Like I think when you work for yourself, it just gives you the opportunity to have that flexibility and freedom because that's really what I'm looking for in just general. Like I don't want to be tied to one city or tied to, one place. I want to have the flexibility to kind of branch out into the world. But I think it's just
Mhm.
being able to have your own schedule and, wake up when you want to wake up and go to bed when you want to go to bed. Like I still wake up early and I have a schedule for myself, but I like knowing that like if I get this done, I won't have to work tomorrow sort of thing. And I'm not
Right.
on a 9 to 5 and there's no one, like saying like you have to do work. It's like if the video or the photo's done, it's done. Like there is no, um, being glued to a computer. It still is a lot of work, and I am glued to the computer when I'm like doing all this work. But
Uh-huh.
it's great that I can really just set my own schedule. And then
Mhm.
low, um, low, I would say. Well, right now this is something small. Super grateful. I have a
Mhm.
studio apartment that's very very small. that I moved into earlier this year, and I've outgrown it because my equipment's just everywhere. So looking forward to moving into a bigger place next year.
Uh-huh.
It's hard to kind of function, but that's something small. But then I would say just planning out your money right. Like for example, like right now I'm focused on securing campaigns for 2021. Like I'm like, okay, I'm good money wise till the end of the year, but I need to start focusing on next year. Whereas like, an average job, you're not thinking of that because you're like, I know I'm getting this income every month. Whereas for me, it's like, no, I need to like plan way ahead of time so I know what money's coming in when. But I think it's just kind of not knowing when the next brand deal is going to come in
Mhm.
is definitely the hardest part, and like planning out your money accordingly.
Okay. And so you said earlier that you have a manager that works with you. As far as like working with companies and working with brands, are these initiated by you, the contacts, or are companies now reaching out to you? For someone who wants to get into this or curious about this, is it something where you have to continue connecting with them and pitching them ideas, or is it them, doing that in reverse?
Yeah. So in terms of for me right now, the way that I literally just got a manager, a couple weeks ago.
Hmm.
Um, and so since let's say June, I mean, I really started making money being an influencer in June till now. And so June till now, I've been like doing all my own brand deals. And
Hmm.
in the beginning of that, it was more brands or me reaching out to brands myself. Um,
Hmm.
and then as I like got a little bit more popular, I get emails every single day from brands wanting to work with me. So I'm fortunate that I don't have to reach out to brands, but as now that I have a manager, it is their job to reach out to brands as well within their network. Um, but I mean, when you're first starting off as an influencer, I would say like make sure your page makes sense for their brand. Like what's good about my page is like you could put any sort of product there. Like I can put a mattress, I can put a hairspray, I can like you can pretty much put anything on my page. And it's okay if like your page is not that, but just keep that in mind when you're looking at certain brands. Like does their product make sense on your page? And then I would recommend just like tagging them and like liking, commenting on their posts. And then they kind of see you and know who you are. Don't go crazy, but they kind of see you and know who you are. And then you can reach out and be like, hey, like, I would love to, I think my brand and your brand would be a great fit. And I would love to partner up with you. Who would be the best person to contact? And then they would probably give you an email. You would email them, say, hey, this is my brand, this is my media kit. Would love to partner with you on maybe an Instagram post or a YouTube video. Like, here's my media kit with rates. And you'll be surprised at the amount of people that will reach out. Like, if you're actually, building out your brand and like you're doing the work, you'll be surprised the amount of people that will say yes.
So, do you think that for you to be in a position to communicate with brands that you need to have a high following for them to respond to you?
I think it's more of the quality of your work. So I would say, even if you have, a couple thousand followers, but the quality of your work on your page is great, they will respond. Because again, it's when you have a smaller following, that following is very concentrated and usually a lot more engaged. So I wouldn't rule it out at all. But I would say your focus right now should be like, how do I make myself better? Like, how do I make my page beautiful? How do I make my page the best it can be? Because
Mhm.
then people will see that you're putting in the work and want to help. Like, even when like smaller influencers reach out to me for advice, like if I see that you're already putting in the work, I will take the time to like, respond to your messages and like give you advice. But if I see that you're not putting in any work already and you didn't do anything, why would I want to help? Like, what's the incentive? But if I see you're doing the
Right.
work, then I want to help you.
Right. And when you reach out to the companies, are you just blind contacting to see who can direct you to where, or should you have a particular department or person with a particular title within companies that you're going to reach out to that you're searching for?
Yeah. So, I mean, as I said before, right now I'm fortunate enough to where people reach out to me, but beforehand,
Mhm.
the way that I usually go about it is first I start with a DM and I say, hi, I'm Jhánnue. My brand is about low waste living. I think our brands like would align very well together, and I would love to discuss a potential partnership. Who would be the best person to email? And then they'll usually provide an email. And then sometimes brands will automatically have like their email on their page. And so like if they don't respond to your DM, after maybe a week, then I would send them an email to follow up as well. Cause some brands get a lot of DMs, just like a lot of influencers. Like it's for me, like it's better for you to email me than to DM me because I get a lot of DMs and it gets overwhelming. So I think it's just reaching out to brands in both ways. And I think that definitely, you'll be surprised. Brands will reach out. Like if you're doing the work on your page and you reach out with a well-crafted message and you're saying, this is who I am, I think would be a great fit. Who's the best person to contact? It doesn't have to be overcomplicated. It can be very simple, but just being very direct to the point and not writing paragraphs and paragraphs because it's like these people are busy. It's just like get to the point of what you want. Even when brands email me, I'm like, I don't read half of it. I'm like, what's your website? What do you want? Are you paying? Done. Like, I don't need to read lists and lists of things. Because it's like I'm too busy to do all that. So it's the same thing with just like when you're reaching out to brands, it's like get straight to the point, couple sentences, done.
So is there anything that on the journey so far that you wish you learned earlier at the beginning?
I think one, just knowing your worth and understanding that rates vary, but understanding what brands are really getting out of it. Like if a brand were to hire a model and a photographer and a lighting person and whatever, that would cost them thousands of dollars. So by hiring me, they're saving thousands of dollars. And thinking about it from that perspective, because models and actors are out here getting hundreds of thousands of dollars to be in front of the television. And it's like a similar field, right? So it's like, and when, you go on Hulu and you see a TV show that's, super, super old, but it's still getting played, those people are still getting money and because they're using their face, right? And it's the same thing with like an influencer. Like if a brand wants to use your face for a year on their website or whatever, like they need to pay for that. So it's just like understanding that what you need to charge for. And it's not just like, oh, here are my rates, but it's like, here are my base rates. But like, if you want anything outside of me just posting, then I charge more for that. So I think it's just understanding what to charge for.
Right. And it's an actual business, which I think a lot of people blow over and just think, oh, you're just taking some pictures and posting it. But there's a lot of layers and time that goes into the brand and building the brand and having a cohesive look that, reflects your standard. And just like any other job, you're not going to go in there and have your boss come out and negotiate like, today, can I just pay you half?
No.
Or can you just do this for me and I'll let you have a double lunch tomorrow, but I'm not going to pay you today. It's like, no. And this is it. You said it earlier. You are a business, and within, this whole industry, everyone is a business entity. So, being taken advantage of is really what it comes down to, because companies know that these other big brands that are reaching out, they know that you're a business and they're just trying to take as much as they can without having to spend. So are there any other upcoming projects that we should keep an eye out for?
We'll see. I'm definitely going to be, really doubling down on YouTube and building that out. I've been slacking a little bit. YouTube takes a lot of energy and time and effort, and I love doing it, but I've just been just, trying to, navigate just rest and what that looks like. So definitely building out my YouTube a lot more, and hopefully I can expand into some sort of product as well, whether that's like beauty or some sort of digital product in terms of like teaching people how to become an influencer as well. But we're launching some sort of product would be, something you could look forward to.
Yay. I mean, there's so many areas that you mentioned just in our conversation that I'm sure would take off tremendously. Even the hair products for our natural hair. I know one of the things that I've seen I want to give a try is the bar shampoos, but I am so terrified because my hair is so big.
Mhm.
And I'm like, oh my God,
Sure.
what if I put this soap in my hair and I just turn into like a mop immediately? So, like, that is something I would totally be on board with. And first in line is, these bar soaps that are for curly natural hair,
Mhm.
and oh yeah, so just
Stay tuned.
I
Stay
will
tuned.
definitely.
Something might be coming.
Yes, 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 that would be fantastic. Well, thank you so much for spending this time with me and for sharing such great information and insight with us. I've learned a lot, and I'm so appreciative. So, everyone, be sure to head over to Jhánnue's platforms. You will find a plethora of information from low waste home design, fashion, beauty, tips galore on friendly budgets and budget friendly ways to live a more low waste life. And this is stuff that's doable in any price point, which is what I love about her platform. So, my sincerest thanks to you, Jhánnue, for being here with us
Yeah,
today.
thanks for having me.
If you've enjoyed this episode, guys, please subscribe, review, and share the skinny with others. Let us know your thoughts, takeaways, and give your feedback on moments that stood out to you. It's truly important to us as we continue to evolve and grow this amazing community. If there are topics or guests that you'd like to hear on the show, please don't hesitate to drop us a line. You can always find us at our main portal, shayzon.com. That's SHAY, Z as in zebra, ON as in Nancy. For all the goodies and the latest updates on the show, head over to Instagram and follow the Skinny Podcast, which is SKINNI Podcast. And for a peek inside the life of the voice behind the mic, follow at Shayzon. You've been listening to This Skinny with me, Shayzon. Thank you so much for sharing your time and light with me in this space where you are heard, seen, valued, and loved. Never forget you're beautiful and deserve to live a happy and empowered life. Meet you back here for next week's episode. Bye, honey bunnies. Mwah.